Hi, I'm Rebecca Roy, and I manage the Park Interpretive Program for Vermont State Parks, and I'm here at Taconic Mountain Ramble State Park in Hubbardton, Vermont today. This state park is a newer state park. It became a park in 2016, so 5 years ago, and it has 420 beautiful acres and 4.5 miles of hiking trails. And this land that we're walking on together today is Abenaki ancestral land, and the Abenaki have lived here for over 10,000 years and continue to live here and are a great nation, and we're going to keep that in mind as we're walking together today. And we are going to explore the many ways that animals cope with winter and how it increases their resiliency. And looking out at this gorgeous view here, you see that big kind of expansive white area. That is covered with snow now, but it is a mountain meadow. So in the summertime, it's full of beautiful grasses and flowers, which is wonderful habitat for a variety of animals, including groundhogs. And I bring them up because this week we celebrated Groundhog Day, which is not just a day when some people pull a groundhog out of a stump and then it prognosticates whether we have an early spring or 6 more weeks of winter. But it's also marking the midpoint of winter. So we are halfway through winter now, which is pretty exciting. And in February, we start to see the signs of spring. Like, for example, I'm standing in the sun here and it's quite warm. The sun starts to feel stronger in February. The days are longer. The sun is setting later in the evening, so we have more daylight. And it's exciting to look forward to spring, of course, but we're here today to celebrate winter. And there's still time to do that because according to Punxsutawney Phil, we have another 6 weeks of winter. We're halfway there though. So in New England, we call groundhogs woodchucks, which comes from the Algonquin word woodchuck. And groundhogs or woodchucks in the summer are in the meadow eating plants. And they live in burrows or dens that they dig in the hillside. But during the winter, because everything's covered in snow, the way they cope is they go into hibernation. Now, woodchucks are true hibernators because they drop their body temperature significantly and their heart rate. So their body temperature goes from 99 degrees Fahrenheit to less than 41 degrees Fahrenheit. And their heart rate goes from 88 beats per minute to 5 beats per minute. And that's how they spend their winter. That's how they cope with winter, by resting and rejuvenating. Now we're going to hike along the trail together now, and we're going to look for some other signs of animals to talk about how they cope with winter. And as we're on our way there, I'd like you to enjoy the view, but also think about other animals that you've seen or other animal sign that you've seen around your house, and maybe how those animals cope with winter. Okay, here we have some signs. You see this tree right here that has the bark scraped off of it? How do you think that happened? It's really high up. Guess what? It was a porcupine, or as I like to call them, quill pig. They're a rodent with quills on their back for self-defense, and they enjoy eating the cambium layer of the bark of trees. And the cambium layer is the living layer of tree bark, which is a delicious, nutritious treat for porcupines. Behind this porcupine-eaten tree, you see this kind of rocky ledge area. Have you ever sat out on a rock, maybe after you went swimming in a cold river, a rock that was in the sun? Or maybe you were on an early morning hike in the summer and you sat on a rock that the sun was hitting? How did that feel? rocks get warm from that solar radiation, from the warmth of the sun. And so they warm up, and it's a really nice place to go when you're cold, right? It's a really nice place to go when you're a porcupine too. And that's why they like to have their dens inside rock crevices or rock stone piles. Any kind of rocky area is their favorite place to have their den. So maybe a porcupine lives up there and came down to snack on this tree. So in the wintertime, porcupines are out moving around, getting food. They definitely slow down and they stay inside their dens on really cold or really inclement weather days. But they come out, and in the wintertime, they'll come out on nicer days, and they prefer to eat from hemlock trees. And they have those long, they're rodents, so they have those big front teeth that they use to scrape the cambium layer of the bark, scrape the bark off the trees, but they also use those to clip twigs. And so if you're ever walking in the woods near hemlocks and you see little pieces of hemlock branches on the ground, that's a good sign that porcupines are around. So look up in the trees and see if you can spot a porcupine, because it's likely that you might be able to see one, which is really cool. So, and porcupines, actually, as a side note, they're a great animal for children to observe. Because porcupines have quills on them, they're not an animal that's going to hear someone skipping and singing through the woods and run away. They're going to slow down and turn around so their sharp quills are facing you. And so if you stop and watch them, it's your chance to see a wild animal. Another thing they do is that because their legs are short and they're big, big bellies, right? They plow trails through the woods when they're out looking for food. So if you see those trails through the woods leading up to any kind of stone feature, you know that there are porcupines around. So how do porcupines cope with winter? Well, they slow down and they eat nutritious food. So there's another way to cope with winter, to rejuvenate and build resiliency. So we're going to continue on our hike to a spot where we're going to talk about another animal and how they cope with winter. And on our way down there, again, I'd like you to enjoy the view, but also think about the things that you like to do in the wintertime. What are your favorite wintertime activities? Hi. So this is a cool thing about this state park, is that there is a Zen Garden. And in the summertime, you can come here and see that there are beautiful pools, water features, so waterfalls, turtles and frogs. There are rock sculptures and Adirondack chairs. It's an absolutely beautiful place to come and sit and reflect on life and nature. We're going to walk in and I'm going to share the winter version of it with you, the Zen Garden covered in beautiful snow. And while we're heading over there, I'd like you to ponder, what animal do you think we're going to discuss next? If you were thinking that we were going to talk about people, you're right. People. Okay. How do you cope with winter? What do you do to cope with winter? Are you snugly warm inside your house right now, feeling very content? Sort of like a woodchuck? That's one way to cope with winter. Another way is to be more like the porcupine and slow down, but still get out and about to spend time in nature. UVM recently published a research study where they surveyed more than 3,000 Vermonters to gather information about what people were doing in nature and whether they were visiting nature more or less since the beginning of the pandemic last March. And you can probably guess what the findings were from that research study. Everybody, the trend is, just about everybody is spending more time in nature. And the 3 top activities that people are enjoying more than ever are walking, gardening, and hiking. And maybe you're one of those Vermonters or one of those people who've been spending more time in nature during these stressful times. And the reason why we're drawn to it is because nature is rejuvenating. It strengthens our health, our physical health, our mental health, our spiritual health. And there's a lot of research that backs up that evidence. But I think you know in your heart that when you get out in the greenery of beautiful trees or a mountain meadow or a Zen garden, that it is improving your well-being. And so wintertime offers really unique sensory experiences that you can't get in other times of year. And if you spend time outdoors in harsh weather, it builds resiliency in you. You can draw back to the memories of overcoming that walk through sleet at another time when you're facing adversity in your life. So I encourage you to cope with winter by slowing down, which I think is important to rejuvenate, but also to take time to be outside in nature because it provides so many benefits. And there are a lot of different ways to cope with winter. And today we've talked about some different ways that animals cope with winter and how it builds their resiliency. And I encourage you, as soon as you can, to get out in nature and spend time outside to build your resiliency as well. And it doesn't have to be a state park. Maybe you're near a state park and you can visit it, and that would be great because state parks are really special places. But there are also wonderful town parks or town forests or even just a tree-lined street to get out and about in nature. It builds your resiliency and helps you be a healthier, happier person. So thank you so much for joining me for this virtual hike at Taconic Mountain Range State Park, and I hope to see you out here very soon.